Blake believes that Man Enough is only legit if Justin knows who Taylor Swift is. This is insanity. Taylor continues, yes, there has been a lot of the Justin stuff, but I've been through times like this before. I know how all-consuming it is. It's more like, and I feel really bad saying anything about this. It says, you were so epically heroic today. I recapped every moment to Ryan. I kept remembering stuff. You making shit up about me and lenses. Blake was like throwing around Taylor's name just to throw around Taylor's name. I think Blake lies a lot, but Taylor was in it the whole time, because look at even Taylor's lawyers.
Taylor Swift's own text messages have now been exposed. And what they reveal is a level of manipulation, narcissism, and behind-the-scenes bullying that would make even the most seasoned Hollywood power broker blush. These aren't rumors, these aren't allegations from anonymous sources. These are Taylor's own words, black and white, exposed for the entire world to see. And here's the thing. This isn't just about Blake Lively and the "it ends with us" controversy anymore. This is about a pattern of behavior that has been documented, exposed, and quietly ignored for years. Taylor Swift didn't just lend Blake a song for a movie soundtrack. She didn't just offer friendly advice over brunch. According to the text messages now in the public record, she was strategically embedded in what multiple commentators are now calling a calculated takeover of Justin Baldoni's film, his reputation, and his livelihood. Not from the sidelines, from the war room. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this changes everything. Not just for Taylor, not just for Blake, but for every person in Hollywood who has ever been steamrolled by people with more money, more lawyers, and more connections than they could ever fight against. Let's lay the foundation here, because the details matter. When the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation first erupted into public view, Taylor Swift's legal team moved quickly to get ahead of the narrative. Her lawyers released a statement claiming that Taylor's only involvement with the "It Ends With Us" project was sharing a song. That was the official line. Taylor contributed music, end of story, nothing to see here. But then the text messages between Taylor and Blake were entered into evidence, and the official story didn't just crack, it completely collapsed, because what those messages reveal is not a pop star casually lending a track to her best friend's movie. What they reveal is someone who was, according to multiple legal analysts and industry commentators, actively coaching Blake, strategizing with her, mocking Justin Baldoni behind his back, and doing so with the kind of precision that suggests this wasn't emotional support. This was an operation, and Taylor's lawyers knew it, which is exactly why they tried to minimize her involvement before anyone could read the receipts. That doesn't automatically mean anything suspicious on its own, but when you stack it against what the texts actually say, the gap between the public statement and the private reality is devastating.
I don't think there was any point where Blake was like throwing around Taylor's name just to throw around Taylor's name. I think Blake lies a lot, but Taylor was in it the whole time, because look at even Taylor's lawyers had said, no, Taylor, the only way she was involved is she shared a song with "It Ends With Us." Bullshit. Because immediately after we saw the text messages that she was all up in this.
Let's get into the messages themselves, because the language is extraordinary. In one exchange, Blake tells Taylor, quote, "You are so epically heroic today." She says she recapped every moment to Ryan Reynolds. She describes Taylor making things up, fabricating stories, referring to herself as Blake's, quote, "doll," and describes Justin Baldoni as a, quote, "clown falling for all of it but also resisting it." Blake then tells Taylor she is the world's absolute greatest friend ever, and that she, quote, "won the lottery."
Taylor says to Blake, let's go up one. Blake says, "You were so epically heroic today. I recapped every moment to Ryan. I kept remembering stuff. You making shit up about me and lenses. And let me make this bigger. I need glasses. And referring to yourself as my doll. This clown falling for all of it, but also resisting it. You are the world's absolute greatest friend ever. I won the lottery."
Now pause on that for a moment. This is not the language of two friends casually discussing a workplace disagreement. This is the language of co-conspirators celebrating a successful play. Blake is praising Taylor for performance, for deception, for making things up and having the target fall for it. And Taylor's response is not discomfort. It's not, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Taylor's response is, quote, I won the lottery, you're the coolest person in the world, and you like me. The question people are now openly asking is this. If Taylor Swift was genuinely just a supportive friend helping someone navigate a difficult professional situation, why was she fabricating stories? Why was she playing a character? Why was Blake describing her as a doll who made a clown fall for things that weren't true? But it doesn't stop there. Because the most bonkers part, and that is Blake's word, not mine, is what comes next. Blake texts Taylor that the most offensive thing Justin Baldoni ever did wasn't the alleged workplace misconduct. It wasn't the toxic environment Blake claims she endured on set. No, the thing that enraged Blake the most was that Justin Baldoni told Taylor Swift he doesn't really follow pop culture. Let that sink in.
Blake believes that Man Enough is only legit if Justin knows who Taylor Swift is. This is insanity. This woman does not need PR. She does not need lawyers. She needs to be admitted to a mental institution. I'm sorry, my opinion only. How do you say that? So his entire brand is dismantling toxic masculinity. He monetizes it. He does TED Talks, exclamation, exclamation, but says this to you, that he doesn't follow pop culture.
Blake Lively, who has positioned herself as a victim of workplace harassment so severe it justified a legal campaign that has effectively destroyed a man's career, was apparently most furious that the director of her film didn't adequately genuflect before Taylor Swift. Blake writes, quote, his entire brand is dismantling toxic masculinity. He monetizes it. He does TED Talks, but says that to you, the implication being that you cannot credibly advocate against toxic masculinity unless you are also a devoted Taylor Swift fan.
Blake is saying here is for Man Enough, the brand, to be authentic and for Justin to actually be an advocate. He needs to know who Taylor Swift is, and enough Taylor Swift culture and universe that you qualify as someone that can speak on toxic masculinity?
As one commentator put it, since when is there a quiz? Are we supposed to believe that the legitimacy of someone's advocacy work, their Man Enough brand, their years of public speaking on mental health and masculinity, all of that is invalidated because they didn't rattle off 20 Taylor Swift songs on command? Even people who initially supported Blake are now stepping back and saying this level of entitlement, this level of delusion, is something they simply cannot defend. And here's where things get really interesting. When you put all of this together, a pattern starts to emerge that goes far beyond one movie and one director. Multiple commentators have now pointed out that Taylor Swift has a documented history of using her legal team, her financial resources, and her enormous cultural leverage to influence outcomes in her favor. She has done it with music rights. She has done it with public feuds, and according to the evidence now on the public record, she did it here. The theory gaining serious traction among legal analysts and entertainment insiders is that Taylor and Ryan Reynolds were not just supporting players in this saga, they were, as one prominent commentator put it, the masterminds of the takeover, with Blake serving as the one implementing the strategy on the ground. That is not a fringe opinion. That is an informed reading of the text messages that are now part of the legal record. And then there's the email exchange that reveals something arguably even more troubling about who Taylor Swift really is behind closed doors. In a moment where, if we take Blake's claims at face value, her best friend is going through one of the most traumatic professional experiences of her life, Taylor makes it about herself. She writes to Blake that she's been sensing, quote, a little shift in the way you talk to me. She complains that Blake's messages feel like, quote, a mass corporate email sent to 200 employees. She says Blake uses the word we too many times. She says she misses her, quote, funny, dark, normal speaking friend. This is a woman whose best friend is supposedly in crisis. And Taylor's primary concern is that Blake isn't texting her with enough personal warmth.
Taylor continues, yes, there has been a lot of the Justin stuff, but I've been through times like this before. I know how all-consuming it is. It's more like, and I feel really bad saying anything about this because your texts have been so nice and the intent, but your last few, it felt like I was reading a mass corporate email sent to 200 employees. You use the word we like 18 times. And it feels funny to be in any way critical of any way of your process that you've been going through, but I just kind of miss my funny, dark, normal speaking friend who talks to me as herself, not like a plural unit. When it's a group I'm hearing from, I feel distance from you, even when we are geographically, and then it cuts off.
As one analyst described it, this is textbook narcissistic behavior. The friend is suffering, but the narcissist redirects the emotional energy back to themselves. And then in a separate message, Taylor writes about Justin Baldoni, quote, "I think this bitch knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin." She then shares a link to a People magazine article about Baldoni. Now, this is fascinating for one specific reason. Taylor Swift has said publicly, including on the New Heights podcast with Travis Kelce, that she does not look at headlines. She has said, quote, "Headlines have nothing to do with me." And yet here she is sending headlines to Blake Lively, monitoring Justin Baldoni's press coverage and strategizing about what his public statements mean for their campaign against him.
It's at a point where something can be about me, like my name can be in the actual headline, and it can still be none of my business.
Okay.
Like, people can be out here, people might be out here doing too much.
Just shaking ass.
Doesn't mean I have to do a damn thing.
So either Taylor lied on that podcast or she lied in those texts. Either way, someone is not telling the truth, and the receipts are right there. Here is what I think is coming next, and I want to be clear, this is analysis, not accusation. Justin Baldoni's legal team now has these text messages as part of the court record. They have documentation showing Taylor Swift's direct strategic involvement in what they argue was a coordinated campaign to destroy their client. Taylor's lawyers have already been caught publicly minimizing her role in a way that the text messages directly contradict. If Baldoni's team decides to expand their legal focus, and multiple legal commentators believe they should, Taylor Swift could find herself not just peripherally connected to this case but centrally implicated. And unlike her previous public disputes, where she controlled the narrative from start to finish, this time the evidence is already out. The texts are public, the emails are public, the contradictions between her lawyer's statements and her own words are documented. We are watching that happen in real time. The real question now is whether the public, Taylor's fans, the media, and the industry will hold her to the same standard they applied to Justin Baldoni. Because if the roles were reversed, if a male celebrity had been caught in text messages fabricating stories, mocking a female director, and strategizing to take over her film, there wouldn't be a conversation about context, there would be a reckoning. So where exactly is that same energy now? That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.